Hello model car fans, welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Rel. And this week's build I'm featuring here is a 69 Plymouth GTX. Now this is the maybe bigger brother, could maybe call it the older brother. I would say older only because the GTX became a car in 67 where the Roadrunner became a car in 68 as far as the nameplates go. So one being the GTX was an upscale car with many more options and trim than the Roadrunner. But in 69, Roadrunner's second year and GTX's third year, they pretty much shared a lot of the same sheet metal and a lot of the same options and similar performance. Both of them you can get the Hemi motor in, and the GTX was a $3,400 car. It was like 34 20 something as far as the base price goes, and the Roadrunner was a $3,089 base price for 69. But the Hemi engine was available in both of them. But the Hemi engine in the Roadrunner was something like an $800 option, where in the GTX it was something like a $700 option. But for your base price being roughly $350 difference, which doesn't sound like much today, but that was quite a bit of a difference in price. So not very many buyers apparently wanted the luxury options, because the GTX only sold like 14,000 something hardtops to the Roadrunner's 48,000. So it was literally almost 4-to-1 when it came to the cars. So that's why they're so rare today. And the GTX, the convertibles, there was roughly 700 convertibles. And so very rare. And the Hemi engine, which this one has in it as far as the model kit goes, there was only 200 and something 69 GTXs with the Hemi engine. I don't remember how many are convertibles. I think it's in the single digits, but I can't remember that one off the top of my head. I used to know it, and the ironic part is because this one, how it started out as a rebuild project, but I'll get into that in a minute. But the GTX, it just declining sales and everything, even though there wasn't a whole lot different, but much higher trim level, the wood grain and the extra trim along the body and all of that stuff. So it was definitely a flashier car, but buyers just weren't really going for it between the two body styles because they were just so much alike and pretty much straight competitors. Where the Roadrunner had the 383 was standard and the Hemi engine was the optional engine. Now in the GTX, it had the 444 barrel, and then the Hemi engine was optional. When it came down to it, it wasn't much of a price difference between the two cars, but getting the 440 and all the extra trim for roughly 350 more, it really doesn't sound like a bad deal for the time, but not too many people did it. But the Roadrunner, you couldn't get the 440, but the 446 barrel, as it's referred to in Roadrunner literature, that became a mid-69 option. And I've read literature that says that motor was available in the GTX, but I know it wasn't. And it's just kind of funny, just reading articles online, and some of the, misinformation that's in some of them. But I've been asked a number of times where I get my information and some of my stuff, and a lot of it's kind of off the top of my head. I do refresh my memory, and I'll go and fumble around online and pull up some of the stacks, or pull out one of the books I got. I got a number of books, magazines all over the place. I've been reading the Mopar magazine since the 90s, and I've got a ton of them. Bookcases behind me and books all over the place. And Hemming's Muscle Machine, read that, subscribe to that, and just miscellaneous magazines over the years. Just been constantly reading them and reading them and reading them, and love all of the individual stories and that stuff that's in there. But as you read a lot of these facts over and over and over again, they get kind of imprinted in your brain. And I'm great for that kind of stuff. Just love automotive history and automotive trivia, but don't ask me what actors were in what films, because I'm one of those. It was that guy that was also in this movie, and it's just the guy with the weird cheeks, or I can't remember actors' names or follow sports. That's just me. My head's full of this useless automotive history and stuff like that, and it just fascinates me, and I like to compare and think of that stuff. But for a car that is very rare today, and even when it was produced, I like these GTXs, and they just they stand out, and they look pretty good, and just like the extra trim and the flashy, and I just like the top of the line loaded cars. So that's part of the appeal and draw to me. Now this one, it is a Johan and it's a restoration, and I initially got it for free. I know you're not going to believe that. That's crazy. Who would give you that? But a good friend of mine, Scotty, locally here, William Scott, but he had this and he surprised me as a gift one time. We've kind of done it to each other over the years, just kind of having fun. He goes, I got one that I think you can restore, but it's going to take some serious work and you should really enjoy it. And he gives me this thing, and it, of course, did not look like this. I've got a couple of pictures. I'm put a few more pictures probably at the end of some of the build progress. But he gave it to me as a Johan 69 GTX convertible. I'm like, okay, cool, and looking it over, it was pretty complete. Had the body, all the chrome needed to be redone. Windshield frame was all busted up. It was missing the convertible boot and just some other small stuff. Most of it I had. Wheels and tires it didn't have. I'm like, okay, cool, this is a nice one, and I know they're very rare, and I didn't have one, and I wanted one, but they're very hard to find, and especially for any kind of a good price. But of course you can't say no to a thing like that. But I took it home. I was comparing it to the AMT 69 GTX convertible and checking it out and just wondering a few things. And I started to ask some of my friends, where I can find a convertible boot for this, because I did not know that Johan, and many of you guys that know are, shaking their heads like, they didn't make a convertible. No, they didn't make a convertible model kit. I'm like, all right. I'm starting to realize that. I'm like, all right, somebody cut the roof off of this thing, but they did a very nice, convincing job as far as where it was cut here and how the windshield frame was actually done and trimmed up. But it was also broken, so I was trying to figure out, like, maybe I'll use the AMT windshield frame on it. But I'm like, all right, now I just need to come up with a convertible boot. And the boot didn't fit. But the rest of the body was actually really nice. All the chrome was there. I sent the chrome out to Chrome Tech Bob back then. He redid it all for me, and it pretty much kind of sat. And then I realized, okay, I don't have a hardtop, and I would like to find a hardtop body. So this thing just sat and sat. And I did have the original interior for it back then, and I ended up using that in my yellow 69 Roadrunner instead. So I put that in there because that one had the 70 interior and not the 69 interior, even though it's the GTX interior, not the Roadrunner. But I wanted that one to be Johan correct, much like this one when I restored that one. And it had a 70 interior, which the Repops had. So I used that interior, and I was missing the interior, and I was looking for a body, and it was getting to the point where, even the chrome was worth some money on eBay, so I can part the parts out and sell it, or just, use it. So it wasn't hurting me to hold on to. But, I always dreamed about, I'm going to rebuild this someday. And, well, that day came a few years later, and it was basically, I was just keeping my eyes open, and I had found out that Hart's Parts made the resin interior tub, so I got another resin interior tub, and it was a little warped on the side door panel, so I ended up putting a piece of styrene, just not sprue, but flat stock that you got at the hobby store, and I glued that to the door panel sides to make it much more rigid and keep them flat. So in some of the pictures, you'll see that in a resin interior. Got that to fit, and eventually a mint body popped up. And it was on eBay, and I paid a pretty penny for it. I think it was like $60 for a mint unbuilt body from one of the guys that, parted out some kits. And I believe his kit was missing some items, so it wasn't a complete kit, but what was in there was unstarted and mint, and all I needed was the body. And, they can get kind of crazy, and I spent like $60, but having a mint body to put this together, and then the resin interior, it's like, all right, cool, now I can build this thing. And I just always pictured it this really dark green with the black stripes like I did here, and just got it already. And I was like, all right, now I just need to get some red line tires or something like that. And these are actually Johan ones also. And they came with another build of mine, my 70 GTX, that's yellow. It had these wheels and tires on it. And I knew I didn't want them on the 70. I wanted the rally wheels on that. So immediately those wheels and tires went from that kit to this kit. And everything else, I pretty much left it all alone. Here's the underside of the chassis. Just detail it up, paint it, left the pins, the plastic pins there. And then, the metal axles and the Hemi engine in there, but dressed it up. These decals are actually from an AMT kit. And being that this was a really nice mint body, this is all bare metal foil, and even the GTX is bare metal foil. And I just carefully would cut that with an X-Acto knife and pick the pieces out with a toothpick to get the emblem to come out that nice. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a pain in the butt. And I know I'd messed up once or twice and had to restart over. So that foil's been done a couple of times before I finally got it right and to my liking. And then the interior has got the bucket seats, the 4-speed console. And then the headrests were missing, but I used ones from the AMT kit, just glued them on there. And, polished the glass a little bit and did the semi-gloss black on there. And then the orange, the actual functional air grabber cars had the orange on there. The black ones are on the non-functional cars. But I got the engine in here and did it up. So there's the Hemi engine, which that's all right from Johan. I didn't add any spark plug wires or anything to that. Just painting it up and kind of enjoying it. And then the washer bottle there, and the nice grill. I just love how the Johan did the grill on this, and actually has the clear headlights, which for clear headlights, pretty rare. And I think this is one of the first ones that I know of that got the clear headlights from Johan. All the other 69 kits I can think of and 70 kits have the chrome headlights. So I don't know if this is one of their first, but it's the first one that I know of. I can't think of any others that have the clear lenses. But this grill is just awesome. And even the Roadrunner grill, just really love the way they come out. But I did add the underside there. Painted that and everything. But that is a Johan part. They did provide that. I know AMT has them as well, but it was quite functional. And just some detail, which for Johans is kind of surprising that it has under hood detail and that part. And for the engine compartment, it's actually pretty decent. So there was a little bit higher level of detail that's in these kits than you get in a lot of the other kits of the time period. But just love the way this one came out. And of course, all of them, you're kind of a parent to these cars. So when you start saying that, you love all your builds, of course. And then this is like one of my favorite greens, and it's Tester's British Racing Green Metallic that comes in the little jars. I've used that on a ton of my builds, so you'll keep seeing this color over and over and over again. And I like the fact that it's metallic and it's got kind of a gold metallic flake in it instead of the green, but it just really pops. And I just love it. So I'm not a huge green fan, but I love this particular shade of green, and I've used it a lot. So you'll see this quite a bit, especially when I put the real automotive clear on top of it like this one. It just really makes it pop. But that's kind of enough on this one. It's a fun car to show you guys, and being a super rare kit and all of that. It's just I got to show you. And you got the Hemi decal back here, and just really enjoyed this one. And it was one that I held on to and was patient, and eventually the missing parts came my way, like that body. And the more I think about it, the heck of a deal I actually got for that at the time. And and Scotty, thank you for the challenge and giving me some of that stuff. And it's just kind of funny to it's fun to tell a story like that too, when you got your buddies and your camaraderie and stuff like that. But thank you again for everybody who watches and all of your comments and your subscriptions, and hit that like button. Really appreciate it. You guys, you have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next Saturday.